Over the past few months, XRP has experienced volatility that is typical for crypto. But the context is different this time. Ripple, the company behind XRP, has been making moves that suggest a longer-term vision beyond just token price action. Partnerships with banks and payment providers, as well as updates to their blockchain technology, are creating pathways for real-world adoption. These developments are not always immediately obvious in the charts, but they matter deeply for anyone holding or considering XRP. The combination of legal clarity, technological enhancements, and strategic partnerships is setting the stage for what could be a critical period in XRP's history. At the same time, it's important to recognize that no investment in crypto is without risk. Regulatory developments remain a wild card, and even minor announcements from agencies like the SEC can ripple through the market with significant effects. For XRP investors, this means staying informed and analyzing each move not just in isolation, but in the context of a broader narrative about adoption, compliance, and long-term utility. The question isn't just whether XRP will go up or down in the next few weeks. It's whether the ecosystem itself is building a foundation that can support sustainable growth over the next several years. To fully grasp what these recent moves might mean, we need to look at them through multiple lenses: market sentiment, technical infrastructure, and regulatory positioning. Each of these factors influences investor behavior differently, and understanding how they intersect is key to making informed decisions. We'll break these elements down step by step, showing how even subtle changes in Ripple's strategy or XRP's network can create ripple effects, pun intended, that impact price, adoption, and long-term investor confidence. This is not about hype. It's about seeing the structural shifts that could define XRP's path in the months ahead. Respected viewers, as we move into the next layer of analysis, let's focus on market sentiment and what it's telling us about XRP right now. Sentiment in crypto is often volatile and influenced by headlines, but in XRP's case, the signals are more nuanced. On-chain data shows increased activity in certain wallets that historically belong to long-term holders, suggesting that some investors are taking a strategic stance rather than reacting to short-term price swings. This accumulation pattern can indicate confidence in Ripple's ongoing developments, but it's important to balance this against the actions of traders who may still be reacting to regulatory uncertainty or broader market turbulence. Understanding the mix of these behaviors gives us a clearer picture of the near-term landscape. Technical developments also play a critical role in shaping investor expectations. Ripple has been upgrading its network to improve transaction speed and reduce fees, which are essential for real-world utility. These improvements are not just technical footnotes. They can influence adoption by financial institutions that prioritize efficiency and cost-effectiveness. Each new integration, whether it's with cross-border payment providers or emerging digital banking platforms, adds another layer of credibility to XRP as a functional asset. For investors, these updates matter because they affect how XRP is perceived not just as a speculative token, but as a tool that underpins actual financial transactions across borders. Meanwhile, regulatory developments continue to be a defining factor in XRP's market behavior. Ripple's legal battles have been closely watched by the entire crypto ecosystem because the outcomes could set precedents for how digital assets are classified and regulated. Even partial clarity from regulators tends to shift investor psychology, sometimes more dramatically than market fundamentals themselves. For XRP investors, this means that understanding the regulatory landscape is just as important as understanding charts and technical indicators. The key takeaway here is that the market reacts not only to price trends, but to signals about legitimacy and compliance, which can have longer-lasting effects on adoption and investor confidence. Finally, we can't ignore the broader crypto market context. XRP does not exist in isolation. Its moves are influenced by Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the general risk appetite in digital assets. When market conditions are favorable, XRP can benefit disproportionately from positive sentiment and increased liquidity. Conversely, during periods of market stress, even strong technical and regulatory developments may not prevent short-term price pressure. Recognizing this interplay between broader market cycles and XRP-specific developments is essential for a nuanced understanding of what these recent moves truly mean for investors. Let me be very clear. When we talk about XRP's potential trajectory, we also need to examine the strategic positioning of Ripple itself, because the company's moves often have a direct impact on investor confidence. Ripple has been actively forging partnerships with banks, payment processors, and fintech platforms across multiple regions, signaling a deliberate effort to embed XRP into real-world financial infrastructure. These partnerships are not just marketing announcements. They represent channels where XRP can be used for liquidity management and cross-border settlements. For investors, understanding these partnerships provides insight into whether XRP is likely to see sustained utility rather than being treated purely as a speculative asset. Another important factor is the evolution of XRP's technological ecosystem. Ripple has been rolling out updates aimed at enhancing scalability and security, which are critical for institutional adoption. Features like faster transaction settlement, improved interoperability with other blockchains, and reduced operational costs make XRP increasingly attractive for entities that handle large volumes of transactions. When investors consider these updates, it's clear that the value proposition extends beyond price speculation. It's about building an infrastructure that can support enterprise-level financial operations efficiently and reliably. At the same time, there are subtle indicators in trading patterns that can't be ignored. The mix of long-term holding wallets and active trading volumes suggests that the market is balancing between conviction and caution. Some investors are clearly betting on Ripple's long-term strategy, while others are positioning for short-term volatility. This dual dynamic creates a layered market environment where understanding investor psychology is as important as reading technical charts. Observing how these patterns evolve in response to news, network updates, and regulatory shifts gives us a clearer sense of potential market behavior. Finally, it's worth considering the narrative surrounding XRP within the broader context of digital asset adoption. While Bitcoin and Ethereum often dominate headlines, XRP occupies a unique niche focused on bridging traditional finance and blockchain innovation. Its design for rapid cross-border settlements, combined with Ripple's strategic business approach, positions it differently than many other cryptocurrencies. For investors, this means evaluating XRP not just as a digital token, but as part of a wider story about the integration of blockchain into mainstream financial systems, a story that could unfold gradually, with periods of consolidation and bursts of adoption-driven growth. As we approach the final part of our analysis, it's crucial to tie together all the elements we've discussed and consider what they collectively signal for investors. When you combine market sentiment, technical upgrades, strategic partnerships, and regulatory developments, a picture emerges of an ecosystem that is positioning itself for sustainable relevance rather than chasing short-term hype. This doesn't mean XRP is risk-free. Far from it, but it does suggest that the moves we're seeing are part of a deliberate strategy that could influence both adoption and investor confidence over time. One area that deserves attention is liquidity and market depth. Recent data shows shifts in trading volumes and liquidity pools, indicating that institutional participants may be quietly increasing their exposure. While retail investors often react to headlines, institutions typically focus on the underlying fundamentals: network reliability, transactional efficiency, and regulatory clarity. These elements can drive demand in ways that are less visible in the short term, but have significant implications for stability and price resilience. Watching these trends carefully allows investors to understand when XRP might be transitioning from a speculative instrument to a utility-driven asset with broader financial significance. Another subtle but important signal comes from the global adoption trends Ripple is targeting. Expansion into new regions, particularly in Asia and the Middle East, reflects not just ambition, but recognition of real transactional demand. Cross-border remittances, corporate liquidity management, and banking infrastructure all benefit from faster and more cost-efficient solutions. For investors, this adoption narrative matters because it can influence long-term demand for XRP tokens, independent of short-term market sentiment or cyclical volatility. Essentially, the network's real-world utility creates a foundation that could support more resilient growth over time. It's also worth considering the psychological aspect of investing in XRP. Market participants are becoming increasingly sophisticated. differentiating between projects with tangible business applications and those that rely primarily on speculative narratives. Ripple's combination of enterprise partnerships, regulatory engagement, and ongoing technical development strengthens the argument that XRP sits in the former category. For investors, this means the evaluation process should be more analytical, assessing fundamentals, adoption, and strategic positioning, rather than purely reactive to price movements. Taken together, the recent moves in XRP suggest a market in transition. Short-term volatility will continue, and regulatory developments can create spikes or dips. But the underlying structural factors point toward a token that is gradually carving out a meaningful role in global finance. For investors, staying informed, observing institutional behavior, and understanding the evolving regulatory and technological landscape will be key to navigating this period intelligently. With that perspective, XRP is more than just a chart. It's a developing ecosystem that rewards careful analysis, patience, and strategic thinking.